funnel these readers into the website so that they can create their own income from practicing their talent and practicing their intuition.
Yeah, and you do a lot of different card styles. You're open on that particular platform for any type of divination, which helps a lot of people, I think, expand and get themselves out of the box.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people that get stuck in it.
Excuse me, what?
I say I feel we get a lot of people sometimes in a lot of groups that get stuck on the same thing. They don't expand. They get used to using the same exact type of divination, the same exact type of questions. And I think that part of what your group does is help people to expand and get out of that box so that they can grow as readers.
Right. I agree. I mean, you don't want to stifle spirituality. You want to stifle your own personal growth. Spirituality is a part of everyone's life, whether they adhere to it or not, whether they honor it or not, however they decide to use it. I mean, just to be human, you got to have some kind of hope and faith just because of all the things that happen in the world. I mean, so spirituality for me and using intuition is just something that I was blessed with as a child that I am allowed and has actually evolved over time. And other talents of mine have evolved over time as well. So I don't feel it's fair to really say, oh, you can only do it this way. I mean, there's certainly restrictions in running a group, I mean, honestly, but when it comes to practicing your own spirituality, you should be able to have an open forum to where you can find people that may be similar at the same level as you and have a hand to hold while you're walking through this. And I just think that that's the way spirit drives us anyway, in our communities and our families and our soul
And I
families.
think it's great, because part of my show is to help try and lift people and help them become better at what they do spiritually when it comes to readings. I laugh because, I do the soul cards. And I know you love them too. And
I love the soul cards.
I tell people all the time that soul cards for me give me license to say pretty much whatever the fuck I want.
Pretty much. And that is the beauty of an intuitive deck.
Yeah, because they give me the message and they word it to me in a specific way. So however it comes through, and I do try to water it down sometimes, but I give it to them point blank. And I know you're the same way. So what's your favorite type of divination that you use on a regular basis all the time?
I have my own deck. And so to me, that'll be my go-to. Because to me, it's like something that I hold that I'm very familiar with. I know I've created it. It's like an old blanket. Soul cards, I have to say, are my other one. That is something that I was given as a gift years and years and years ago, like before I even started really reading. I want to say over 15 years I've had those two decks because they were gifted to me before I had my son, and he's 14. So I never picked them up. I put them in a box. So that's one of, and then one day I looked at it and I went, oh. And it's just like looking at a picture on a wall. I mean, all of a sudden it just started talking to me. So I think that, and now after in my 30s, I had a clairaudient moment. So now there's more clairaudience. I still get really clear visions too when I do energy. I feel like it's called energy reading. I'm not very technical. So, so if someone tells me a name, my guides will give me an image, and they'll give me an image and an energy at the same time. So if I'm doing a reading, not only am I using tools, I'm also scanning them like an aura and an energy reading as well, which gives me which over time has, from my experience over time of doing readings for different people, I know what to trust. I know what not to, I know where that's going. So over time, you just evolve. I mean,
now, do you just limit yourself to, I'll have to word it this way, because, there's a difference between just doing a reading and doing what I call a spiritual reading, because, spiritual reading is designed to help people in their life reach that goal. So not just giving them, a yes or no or answering a question, but telling them things that they need to do in order to reach that goal.
Heck yeah.
And
I find, and that's a very great point. A lot of as an online reader, you get a very varied audience.
Yes.
When you're doing them in person, it's a whole different experience. But when you're doing them online, it's a very, you get a very varied. So I feel that it's important in the capacity that I'm allowed to be in. If someone comes and says, I just want an answer to this question, then I just give them the answer to the question. And Spirit will tell me or guide me to say, there'll be times when I hear, oh, but you should probably not do this or you should do that, and that will benefit the next step that you're trying to reach. And then there's other times when people will be more open to you expanding more on that. And I think it's really, it's psychologically, we're the people that are in charge of our lives. And no matter what we hear, hearing that we can change something is empowering.
It is.
I like to read that way.
And that's the way I like to read. And, as a person that wants to help people make their readings better and, elevate themselves, I always tell people, look, give yourself as a reader the permission to change whatever question, your client asks you. Because it's not just hearing, will I find love this year? Is so-and-so the one for me? It's more of what's underneath that. What's the deeper part of that actual question? And then reword it so that you can give them, quality info.
I agree. There's always underlying factors to every question that then,
Yeah.
Are you lonely? Are you happy? Are you sad? Did you create that situation you're sitting in? How can you make it different? Is Bill the one? Maybe he is, or maybe he's just a pattern you're stuck in a relationship cycle. It's not, there's a lot of information out there, spirit-driven, psychologically driven, environmentally driven, and we're fortunate enough to be able to, I hate to use the word therapy, but it's kind of like, help them walk through it, lift them up to the
in a way,
level.
it is therapy. We are providing them a service to help them work through whatever problem, questions,
Correct.
situations. We just do it on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I agree. Thankfully.
So
I like it.
What would you say to all the listeners that are new, that are up-and-coming readers, that want to expand what it is that they do? What type of tips would you be able to give them so that they could become better?
Ultimately, I think it's to sit. I hate to say this, guys, and I know that it's difficult for all of us, even in practice spiritualists, but first off, meditate, sit down, connect with yourself, and find what it is that drives you to do the work in the first place. And from that point, the tools will start showing up. Practice, practice, practice. Pick something and practice it. If it doesn't fit, pick something else and practice it. And if that doesn't fit, pick something else and practice it. Because, as I said earlier, this spiritual path evolves. And it evolves in participation from central spirit, which is your own spirit. And that's where you need to, anything you do in life, a musician's a musician. That's because he's driven by his passion. So spirituality is the same. And you kind of have to focus on what you're passionate about when it's spirituality. If it's helping people and you need tools, you're going to know which tools work best with you. So as an example, as a tool example, I never owned a pendulum. I never understood that. It didn't make any sense to me. What the heck is that all about?
I still don't own one.
Yeah. I walked into a spiritual shop in Santa Barbara when I lived here. I walked up the table because I was looking at them. They were really pretty. I walked over to the table, and the crystals are hanging from a little branch display, right? This one, and everything's still. There's no wind. Nothing's happening. I walk over to the table. There's a crystal that just starts swinging on its own. And I thought, you know what? I should probably buy that. So that's kind of how it works for me. Like my first tarot deck, I was in a tarot shop. I was in a esoteric shop when I lived in Texas at the time. And I walked over to the shelf and I was just, oh, wow, I really should get a tarot deck. And one of them flew off the shelf at me. So for me, it's like the universe kind of has to smack me upside the head for me to get it. And other people may be more better off at picking, but For me, I pick what shows up.
Yeah, they kind of hound me. Like
Yeah,
I started with a bone set. I've had it for a couple of years.
More about that, by the way.
I started a couple of years ago. I purchased mine from Robert Lucas of AncestorHealing.com. And it sat there. I looked at it a few times. I just wasn't feeling the connection. And then, of course, I disappeared for a couple of years to handle some family issues. And when I came back and lit up all my altars, my spirits literally were hounding me. It's like, you got to learn this, you got to learn this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it's been nonstop fun. It's been crazy as hell, but, it's been nonstop.
Trust that voice that guides you to it.
And I think that's important, is the trusting of the voice, but not only that, your own voice. Not listening to other people, whether you want to call them the negative Nancys or, whatever words you want to use. Find yourself a group of like-minded people. Find yourself a mentor. Don't bounce around from one type of reading to another type of reading, in the same system, because you'll just get confused,
Right.
And read more for other people than you do for yourself.
Exactly.
Because when you read for yourself and you're constantly asking questions, you get confused because there's only so many questions you can ask.
Right. And then you get, I agree. It doesn't work. I mean, when I learned systems, like we'll just say tarot, when I learned tarot, I sat down, with the cards and a book. I literally had the book. So I sat with the book and the cards, and I didn't do readings to begin with. I just kind of read through it and got myself familiar with it. And this was before, the internet. So I was like,
before the internet.
So that's how I have to learn it. So and now you can watch, how to do tarot on YouTube. And so that's beneficial because there's so many people out there that are doing it. Thank Goddess that is happening. I'm so, coming from a place where there was not any of that to being a place now where there's so much more awakening happening. Yeah. So practice. Don't be afraid of what your inner voice is telling you.
And, YouTube is great.
It's there.
For 15 years, I tried off and on to, try and learn, the tarot. Never had luck. Didn't like color. Didn't like, all my decks were black and white. I watched one 2-hour video that started out as, learn to read tarot in 2 hours. And, I walked away from that with more knowledge and understanding than I had over, 15 years off and on trying to figure it out.
That's a really good one. That's a really good video. I watch it every once in a while, just a refresher, because yeah.
So Terry Smith, I think she might have missed it, wanted to know what your favorite divination tool is to use.
I use cards. I just have to say right now I use cards. They're just, I like the sound. I like the feel. It's like people who love books, it's kind of, to me, it's just very comfortable. I also do intuitive readings. That's something very inherent to my evolution spiritually. It's just because I've had there's visions and clairaudience coming up for me all the time. Like when people say a name, I get these pictures and I get sentences that come out about what's happening and how, you need to tell them this. And I've had a few mediumships. So that I think that cards would be my favorite at the moment. Yeah.
It all changes. But, I do say that when you find something that works well for you, stick with it. Like I have tea cards and Lenormands, and I have my antique cards, and now I have bone cards and playing cards, some of which I don't even touch, because it's just like, why reinvent the wheel? If I know I've got something that works great, that's what I want to use.
Yeah, and I created the deck, the Coastal Letterman deck. So that, for me, is probably my favorite tool because it's
you.
designed to go with me.
Right.
It goes with me everywhere. And I get asked questions all the time. And so it's my favorite now because it's just, it's my to-go tool.